Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, friends, enemies, and comrades, I hope you're doing well wherever you are. This is Kenya Revolutionary for another quick video. Well, it's not a video, but it's a quick stream that I'll be here. Quick stream. I'll be here briefly just to speak to you about the current Kenyan struggle. The current Kenyan struggle, but that is being spearheaded by the so-called Gen Zs. As I've always told you that the Gen Zs, they're not just limited to an age group. The Gen Zs, are the face of the struggle, which is a representative of all Kenyans of different backgrounds, ethnicity, and age groups, okay? So it's not just the Gen Z, the young folks that you see on the streets that are out there who are, yes, they are out there that are protesting, but it goes way beyond that. Now, there's something that I want to talk about, and it's going to be very brief because I think I briefly alluded to it last time I was here on this live, and I mentioned the aggressive nature of which this administration is trying to ethnicize this Gen Z movement, okay? Karibu sana Ani Njuguna and Pritika Kauru. I told you guys that if you are keen to see what's happening right now, it seems like the political elites have stepped up another gear. They're trying to label this Gen Z movement as a Kikuyu uprising. Okay, they're trying to limit it as, one community that kicked out of government. Now, this is not a new phenomenon, ladies and gentlemen. It's not a new tactic, okay? Because remember, in the previous administrations too, they tried to use this same thing when the Azimio folks, forget Azimio, or when the ODM, Pentagon, whatever the case is, when they were up in the streets protesting, remember the now famous quote by Ruto when he said, "Wale watu wa kungoa reli." He was basically referring to Luos, referring to Luos as the people who always, cause chaos when Raila doesn't win. They labeled that maandamano, the protest, as a mere, tribal, ethnic, group that is not satisfied with whatever the case is, not happy because of their tribal chieftain not being offered a position. So we've seen this being used before, and now they're using it again against the Gen Zs, okay? And like I told you, I usually tell you guys, and I know some of you might disagree, but believe it or not, all these people I've said are in one WhatsApp group. All these people are in the same occult groups, okay? Gachagua, Uhuru Kenyatta, Raila Odinga, Ruto, Matiangi, all of these folks, Martha Karua, all of these people are in one WhatsApp group. They're a member of the elitist, corrupt, evil occult, okay? They're not enemies. That's why you see, in the public, they might disagree and act like they are debating. But once the dust settles, whoever takes power never hold their predecessors accountable for the atrocities that they committed against the Kenyan people. Case in point, we were meant to believe that Uhuru Kenyatta was beefing with Kasongo, okay? And that he was humiliating Kasongo, he kicked him out and all that stuff. And that Matiangi was technically the deputy president, or at that time after Ruto got ostracized, okay? So when Ruto came to power, a lot of people were thinking that, oh, maybe this guy will come to power and he will open the books and look at what's going to happen, what the atrocities of the crimes that the Uhuru regime committed, the crimes that Kibaki had committed, the crimes that Moi had committed, the crimes that Kenyatta One had committed. But no, he dared not even mention anything about the previous administration, and actually embarked on the continuation of this corrupt way of governing Kenya. Okay, if anything, he was a continuation of what his predecessors had done. So there's no difference in what's happening. Now, here's the thing. Here's my worry. Here is what my fear is moving forward. Okay? I think, given the kind of political trajectory that we are on, we are going to face a tribal clash. Okay? Violence. And this is something that is kind of premeditated, planned for, especially in the coming electoral cycle. The next elections, so to speak, whether it's 2027, whether it's 2026, whether it's tomorrow, I don't know. Because at this point, the constitution, the Kenyan constitution, seems to be something of a mystery. Nobody's really taking it seriously. We were told we have a new IBC. If you look at the names there, we know that these are basically Ruto's henchmen and Raila's handpicked lieutenants. So we know that this election is going to be nothing but a rigging process, okay? A coronation process, as Miguna would say. But here's the thing, though, ladies and gentlemen. My worry is this. I saw Mbadi again trying to reinforce this idea, this narrative that I told you that these political elites are really, really pushing. If you remember, again, I don't want to sound repetitive from my video from last week, but you heard what Raila said, saying that this was not a Gen Z movement. Mbadi came then embarked on, affirmed what Raila said, saying that, this was not a Gen Z movement because they understand Gen Z represents tribeless, partyless, leaderless, and all that stuff. It's not a representation of any particular ethnic group or tribal group, okay? Gen Z movement is for all Kenyans of all background, tribe, religion, sex, and all that stuff, okay? It's not a tribal grouping. But now the Mbadis are trying to make it, this was a Kikuyu movement. That's why you saw, he gave that that speech. Even Raila made it so, and others and others. You see, their minions that are also in Jacaranda are saying the same thing. This is a Mount Kenya movement. This is they're being financed by the Kikuyu elites. The Kikuyu elites are taking advantage of their youth by paying them to go in the streets and cause this havoc and cause this mayhem, okay? That's what they're trying to make it seem, okay? Karibu sana beyond Savannah, ataenda one time. So here's the thing, though. I want to say something that I want you to really consider, okay? These two, as I've told you, these two factions that are playing as opposition or the official opposition versus the Ruto blood-based government, okay? As we have established that these two are actually working together behind the scene because they understand that the Gen Z movement, which is not limited to one tribe, is partyless, tribeless, and, leaderless, okay? And that idea of Kenyans coming together to change the whole political corrupt system is a threat to everyone. So what they are doing is try to, illuminate or exacerbate this political tension and make it an ethnic difference in the political field, okay? It is about what my tribe can get and what your tribe can get. That's what they're trying to actually achieve it is the way of how that's the way they have always survived in the previous regimes. The previous regimes, they've always maintained power by using this tribe as the main factor. Now, here's why it is a very, very dangerous, and I will not tire to mention this and actually try to open your eyes so that when you navigate through this political choppy waters, you know and you are well aware and your eyes are open so you do not fall into this nonsense, okay? Let's establish one thing, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, friends, and comrades, before I get going. If this is your first time, I'm your political dietitian, Kenyan Revolutionary, giving you the nutrients that you need. So go ahead and subscribe if you haven't subscribed, if this is your first time. And if you have subscribed, go ahead and hit that like button so that we can get to the meat and the nitty-gritty of what I'm about to talk about. Now listen to me. And I want my Kikuyu brothers and sisters to pay attention because this pertains to you in particular, okay? Of course, it pertains to all Kenyans, but I want to really zero in on the Kikuyu nation right now, the Mount Kenya region, okay? The youth in Mount Kenya are in danger. I will repeat. The youth from Mount Kenya, Kikuyus to be exact, are in danger. They are the ones who are going to be sacrificed the same way Raila Odinga throughout history have always sacrificed the youth from Luo Nation, Nyanza province. This time, the elites, especially the ones coming from your region, okay, want to use you for their own profit, okay, for them to profit. I'll explain to you how, okay? Now, if you listen to how people are talking about politics, okay, of course, not all the people, scratch that. Let me just fix this. The general mood of the country, regardless of tribe, regardless of where you come from, if you live in Nyanza, if you live in Mount Kenya, if you live in Ukambani, coastal region of Eastern, West, whatever the case is, we know, we understand that economically we are not doing good. We understand the kind of corruption that's going on. We understand it is not up for debate. Police brutality and extrajudicial killings are at an all-time high. Now, it's not a new phenomenon. This was also there during the Kenyatta, Uhuru, during the Moi, during the Kibaki. Okay? But now the people, the population are more vigilant. We have more gadgets, we have more cell phones, we have more alternative media. We do not depend on, the state-controlled media to break down the story. There are people with cell phones who capture these atrocities when they happen, whether it's Ojwang, whatever the case is, he called whoever he needed to call. So message does that the information is shared very quickly and it goes rapidly, okay? Now, back to this, the Kikuyu nation, especially the youth. Hazijawacha kuhack bana. Yes, Annie, I believe you. Yes, they'll never stop to hacking. Those are government agents. Some of them pretend that working for Martha Karua and their opposition. Some of them pretend that they are the ones who are like with Gachagua, but they're hackers who are working together with Ruto and they're working together with Gachagua and Martha Karua. But anyway, forget them. I'm not worried about them because if somebody is hacking into my shit and wants to find out about my life, that shows me that I'm more powerful than them. I'm affecting them. So I'm good on that, okay? I'm affecting their I'm affecting their life, so I'm winning, okay? So let them keep on hacking. Please keep on hacking. That means I'm more interesting. I'm making an impact, okay? But anyway, so here's the thing. There's this talk let's get down to the dirty part of it, politics. There's this talk, okay, that reinforces the general stereotypes of Kenya. And now the concentration the limelight is on Mount Kenya. Like I said, I'm going to use Mbadi's speech as an example when he said, oh, the Gen Z's movement was not a Gen Z movement. It was a Mount Kenya thing. It was the Kikuyu youth who were there. That's why the Thika Road was, having all that stuff that was going on, okay? Now, here's the thing. What the government, the broad-based government, okay? Remember, I told you, keep this in mind. Broad-based government and Gachagua and the opposition are one. Broad-based government and the opposition, Wakina Kalonzo, Gachagua, Martha Karua, Eugene, they are one with Ruto and Raila. They're just pretending. But here's the thing. Here's how they're playing it. They want to play into the stereotypical nature of our politics. Now, if you listen to the blood-based government, the broad-based government they're calling with Raila Odinga, they're now trying to push this thing that, oh, you know what? The Kikuyus have always enjoyed ruling Kenya. They're at the upper echelons when it comes to power. They've enjoyed power since Kenyatta 1, Kibaki, and Uhuru. And they've always held high positions, okay? So now, for the first time that they are out of government, they feel that they cannot deal with this. So they are urging their youth, they're pushing this motto, eh? Wanawasha vitu huku na huku because they are not happy about not being in power. That's the narrative. That's the story that we are being told. Now, with that one said, okay, listen to me very carefully. That is coming from the what? The broad-based side. Wakina Kaluma ambao wanatuambia, oh, we Luos, we've been out of we've been out of government. Oh, now for the first time we are now in government, so the Kikuyus are jealous of us. That is how they're playing it, okay? And on the other hand, okay, yes, and on the other side of the aisle, Gachagua is also reinforcing this by positioning himself as the guy who is controlling the Gen Zs and the guy who is the mouthpiece of the Mount Kenya region, the Kikuyus. That's why in every interview he was telling you how Ruto is a tribalist, how all the Kikuyu officials that were in government were all kicked out, how Ruto is working very hard to destroy the Mount Kenya region, the coffee farmers, how Ruto is targeting the, anaharibu maendeleo huko Mount Kenya. You see what I'm saying? So he's doing that to reinforce what the other side is doing. What is perpetrating, okay? The manipulation, okay? That hate, iyo urongo. Because in reality is, whether you're a Kikuyu, Kamba, Luo, Luya, Masai, name it, the economy is hitting everyone. Everyone is suffering. Even the so-called businesses that are owned by Kikuyu, they're also suffering because economy ikiwa mbaya, it affects businesses, it affects the consumption of goods, it affects, trade, inflation, all that stuff. Okay, so everyone feels the effects of a bad economy. Okay, and we know why our economy is suffering. We can, name names. Okay, whether it's through corruption, just bad economic policies or lack thereof. Okay, so these are the things that are happening, but it is being played by both sides. The so-called opposition, who are a fake opposition, there, like I say, they are in the same WhatsApp political group. Okay, so Gachagua is doing his job as the mouthpiece of the Mount Kenya, and is now positioning himself as the guy who is controlling and is supporting the Gen Zs. That way, these people on the so-called broad base who are so say to be in government can actually vilify or point a finger at him to say, see, I told you this Gen Z movement was not tribeless, leaderless, partyless. It's actually being controlled by Gachagua and those those Kikuyu elites, business people. Okay? Hawa ndio wana control Gen Z. Now ndio wanaleta mizozo because they're not happy, because they're not in power. See how they're playing this game? Okay? They're playing this game because the audience, the targeted audience, is the majority of people who do not know better. The uninformed. Wale ambao hawae cannot see through all this. Because they know, listen, there are people, majority of a good number of Kenyans can see the game being played, but there's a huge population that do not see it that way. Either because they are uninformed, or two, there's something called pride. Ethnic pride. Let me explain what ethnic pride is very quickly, okay? If I am a Kikuyu, for example, okay? If I am a Kikuyu and I'm sitting, you know, let's not even sugarcoat this. It's not limited to Kikuyus. I can use Luo, I can use Loya, and I'll use Luo and Kikuyu in this example, okay? But I'll start with Kikuyu. If I'm a Kikuyu and I'm sitting there and I'm listening to Gachagua, okay? Gachagua is saying, oh, Ruto is firing all the Kikuyus from the cabinet, all the ministerial positions, all the parastatals. You know, Ruto is doing this. Ruto is affecting the coffee farming in Central Province. Does that make sense? If I'm sitting there as a Kikuyu man, or you know, I'll be like, you know what? He's actually telling the truth. Look, we saw Nani Muturi was fired. Even Gachagua himself was impeached unconstitutionally. You see, this guy makes sense. Okay, he makes sense. He makes sense. Okay, then he goes along and anaendelea na hizo mambo yake anakuambia, you know, Ruto is this and this and this and that. It makes sense. It makes sense because as somebody who's a Kikuyu, a proud Kikuyu, I feel like, you know, this guy is talking to me. We are being attacked. The youth that went to Maandamano, of course, we understand the political history. You know, some people heeded to what Gachagua told them in 2022, and others who chose to vote for Ruto at the time. Okay, and now Ruto seems to have gone against them, so they feel some kind of degree of what? Betrayal. Why? Because yes, I'm proud to be, I'm using this as an example, I'm proud to be a Kikuyu and I'm seeing what Gachagua is saying is making sense. Okay? I'm looking at this and I'm seeing all this is making sense. Because what Gachagua is saying is not farther from the truth if you do not know better. Or if you want to just be limited to, you let the ethnic pride get the best of you. If you don't want to think and see the bigger picture. Same thing, if I'm a Luo and I'm sitting there and I'm listening to Kaluma says or Raila Odinga, All right, guys. Sorry about that. I was caught up. Sorry. Wacha nikae basi. Okay. So, for example, if I'm sitting there and I'm listening to Kaloma or Raila Odinga, and they're telling you that, oh, we Luos, we've been out of government for a long time. We've been protesting and we're being shot. Now that our people are in government, okay, they are jealous of us. If I am uninformed, do not know better, I can say, okay, it makes sense. It makes sense. If I have ethnic pride, ile ukabila, proud, don't want to think beyond just my ethnicity, I might say, yeah, that makes sense. Unfortunately, majority of Kenyans are persuaded mostly by their tribe. That is how people have always voted, along tribal lines. That's why this Gen Z movement was a new phenomenon. And that is why it's a threat to these clowns who are hanging by a thread, who are depending on this tribal ethnicized politics to keep them in the position they're in, because they're not ideologically principled. They don't stand on any ideology. They just use what? Feelings. Feelings. They are appealing. They're playing into your what? Prejudice. That is what they are using to gain votes and support. A true definition of what? Demagoguery. They're demagogues. A demagogue is somebody who plays into your feelings. They don't reason. Okay? And unfortunately, majority of us do not want to reason. I'm okay with those people who are saying Ruto must go. There's no problem with that. 1 term, 2 term, whatever, half time, whatever. But you have to see the big picture. It goes beyond just, okay, 1 term. Okay, fine, we want Ruto out. But who is this that's talking about 1 term? Okay? That's what I'm talking about. Who are these people who are talking about 1 term? So, what I'm trying to say is this. The Gen Z movement is being scuttled and it's under heavy attack by the political class through the NIS agents that they have within the movement, and the media that they have total control of. They are using that to do what? To scatter or to scuttle and disenfranchise and to split and to destroy and to pacify this organic national patriotic movement called Gen Z. And they want to limit it, deduce it into a tribal outfit. That way, they can totally destroy it after they do that. And unfortunately, to some extent, they're getting some kind of victory because people are buying into it. And I feel like Gen Zs should counter this by using the hard facts. Because what will unite Kenyans will be the fact that all of us are going through economic hardship. We share the same struggle. And we can all agree that all this current crop of leaders, so-called leaders or representatives, have failed us miserably. That is something that Gen Z should highlight. And let's not entertain clowns like Boniface Mwangi, Hanifa, Okia Omtata, Maraga, anyone, Matiangi, Fred Matiangi, Martha Karua, all these clowns that have been proven to be part of the problem, always trying to be the center or center stage in any political movement. That is the first step we should do. Let us not entertain Gachagua's bullcrap. I don't care if he has 1,000 interviews every day calling Ruto whatever the name is. These are people who are pretending. The media is nothing but a stage to them, a platform to them, to try to persuade the unsuspecting public into thinking that these people are different, like they have a political difference, that they're enemies politically. They are not. So Gen Zs should highlight, emphasize that all of these people who are claiming to want to run for presidency in 2027, who are going to these interviews, NTV, I don't know, KTN, Standard, whatever the case is, Fix the Nation, all these nonsensical TV shows to spew their nonsense, we should all reject them. Because they work to maintain the same system of oppression while they pretend to be representing us. You see what I'm saying? That's why I'm not paying attention to people like Murkomen when they talk about the police or whatever the case is. Those are distractions. Raila Odinga talking about nuclear power and all this nonsense that we know will not come to fruition. Those are distractions.